Good evening, Hofstra fans, and welcome to a very special live show we have for you here tonight here at Hofstra. We apologize for the prior technical difficulties, but you've got us now. Kevin Dexter and Siddique Farooqi, joined by the three new assistant coaches here for the Hofstra men's basketball team as we get to know them tonight. Tom Parrotta, Serge Clement, Mike DePaoli. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
So first off, welcome back to Hofstra, Tom and Mike. You guys had prior stints here. Welcome to Hofstra, Serge. How fired up are all three of you guys to be back here? I know you're starting off-season workouts to just get going and get ready for this 21-22 men's basketball season.
It's really, really special for myself and my family. We enjoyed our time here. We were here for 5 years. My wife's from Long Island. I'm from Westchester. Son was born here at Hofstra, and they're anxious to get back and become acclimated to what was a favorite place of ours. So we're really, really excited. We're hitting the ground running, and we're looking forward to keep building on the success that's already been here.
I'm ecstatic to be at Hofstra, being a kid from Queens, and the name recognition of Hofstra University. It just brings chills, and ecstatic at this opportunity and ready to get to work. And we're working and ripping and running right now.
Yeah, really excited to be back. To echo Tommy, it's a really special place, and I think what makes it special is coming back here is the people. You're really fortunate when I was here 11 years ago to work with really, really good people, and the cool part being back is a lot of them are still here. So again, it's a place that's built for success, and really excited to be back.
Let's go around the horn of this one as well. This is the beginning of the Speedy Claxton era here at Hofstra University. Obviously, a lot of excitement, a Hofstra legend, now the head coach taking over a pride program that was raised to unprecedented heights with the work that Joe Mahalik did for so many years. Talk to us about the energy that Speedy brings to this program and sort of what you have seen here as far as the culture that Speedy is bringing to this program.
Yeah, well, just from having doing this for a number of years, I think Speedy is a very unique head coach because of his background in terms of he played at Hofstra, went to an NCAA tournament, played in the NBA for 10 years, and then his journey to become the head coach at Hofstra is really unique. He wasn't just a guy who just came in. He was here for 8 years, and so not only did he play here and play in the NBA, now he has recruited here, developed players, and put them in the NBA. And they, other than COVID, they were going to an NCAA tournament. So the amount of success that he's had as a player and a coach at this institution, I think, is really unique, and I think it's a really big-time selling point that has a lot of people excited.
And typically, just on the recruiting trail, a lot of these student athletes don't know Speedy Claxton, but their parents do. And so the name recognition as it relates to Speedy Claxton to the parents, and once the parents start gibbering and jabbering to their kids about it, then it's like, oh, NBA. And then that's easy for us in terms of selling the school, the institution of Speedy Claxton, and then the staff itself.
The special thing about Speedy, as far as I'm concerned, I remember him, I came the year after he left, when he graduated. So I had a chance to watch him play. He used to come back in the summers and work out with our guys. We had a couple of former players back in the gym over the last couple of weeks, so it's really great to see. I'm really happy for him because everybody knows Speedy, loves Speedy, and respects him because he's an unassuming guy, and it's kind of special because of all the success that he's had. It really is unique. When you go out, to speak to Serge's point, when you go out on the road and you start talking and you mention Speedy Claxton, again, they might not know the name recognition, but once you get into it and you start to talk to them about the success that he's had, and then he gets on the phone with a recruit or a parent, and he's just a regular guy, that really, really is, it speaks volumes. For us, it's an opportunity, and quite frankly, it's a pleasure to show up every day and talk to somebody like that. We pick his brain, and we're kind of starry-eyed at times. We ask him NBA stories, and he sits across the desk and he tells us about his journey. It makes it easy for us to help develop these guys on the team because when we have something to say, whether it's offense, defense, off the court, on the floor, we point at Speedy and say, well, look at the journey he's had. Look at the journey. He's done it, and he's done it at Hofstra. And then he went to the NCAA tournament. And then when you ultimately ask recruits, what do they want to do after graduation? 99% of them say they want to play in the NBA. Well, you have a resource in Coach Claxton that if you just listen and take his advice and just stick to the program, you have an opportunity to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, he's opened up the floodgates to bring in a high level of recruit because they want to take a page out of his journey. You know, it's really fulfilling, and even after all these years, it's wonderful to be a part of it. It really is. This
is something we asked Speedy about during our live show with him a couple of weeks ago. You know, he is, as you mentioned, Tom, a very unassuming guy. He's just a regular guy, right? And we've noticed, obviously, from paying attention to him as an assistant, he had that demeanor on the bench as an assistant, kind of unassuming. Has that changed? Have you guys seen anything click where he maybe gets a little bit more fired up with the guys as the head coach now? Are we seeing more of a demonstrative head coach, Speedy?
In certain cases, yes, but typically he's very assertive. He knows what he wants, when he wants it, and he speaks it. And guys gravitate towards it. And as assistants, it's our job to reinforce what he says.
You know, to that point, I'll say this. I think his personality is very much like this, and it's very steady, which I think is really going to help him as a first-time head coach, and I think it's going to help our program. But what I'll say even more than that is he's very confident and he knows who he is. So I don't think he needs to your point, change who he is, change his DNA as a coach. What his DNA as a coach has been so far has been really successful. So I think he's confident in that. I think he's, again, as a first-time head coach, he's going to be like this and be really steady, which is going to be really good for everybody.
Mike, you brought up a really good point about Speedy, and that is, you know, as a former NBA player, NBA champion, you have this trend now with many universities, you know, taking their star alums and making them the head coach. And many times that is without what Speedy did, and that is putting in the 8 years in, you know, as an assistant coach, the grind. So when you look at, obviously all three of you have had extensive experience, you know, in the trenches, how much more do you respect what Speedy brings to that head coach position, given his background over the last 8 years?
It's enormous. It's enormous because he's very familiar with the shoes that we're walking in right now. And I said it before, his journey is very unique because he's had success at every level. And that includes going back to his alma mater and for 8 years learning under Coach Mihalik. And I can't speak highly enough of Coach Mihalik because when we left here 11 years ago, the program was really at a high and then it dipped a little bit and Coach really brought it back with a really good staff, and that's something that Coach has been a part of, Coach Claxton's been a part of. So I think that really, really helps him. And I'll say this, he still works as if he's an assistant coach. The way he recruits, the way he's talking and having conversations with it, he's very, very into it, and I think that's really going to help us.
Yeah, he's really engaged into everything. And being a first-time head coach, you still have a mindset as an assistant, you know, so the recruiting doesn't change, really. I could remember easily just asking him, hey, just telling him, hey, call this kid. He said, I already did. I took care of it. I'm like, okay. He said, you don't have to remind me. I got it. I'm like, oh, okay, not a problem, because his mindset, the way he thinks, it's as an assistant, but also an understanding that he's leading a group of young men at the helm.
Siddique, you mentioned an NCAA participant and an NBA champ. Now, when we were all hired to come back to Hofstra, a lot of things go through your mind. We're thinking, oh, NBA, there's a different mentality there. And it just wasn't the case. Mike mentioned it. He knows who he is, and he is unassuming, Nick, but there is a quiet confidence about him. One of the things that he and I spoke about, you know, months ago when we sat down, I was floored that, you know, he was open and then wanted input. You know, I'm the old guy in the room a lot of the times. I like to think all that experience, you know, I enjoy being able to help and provide some assistance in some way, shape, or form. You know, coaching, being a head coach for 6 years, it's like dog years. You know, there's a lot that goes into that. And I love that he wants to hear what I can impart to him. And one of the things I said to him, I said, trust yourself. Think about the programs that he's been involved with. Coach Wright, going into the Hall of Fame. And then arguably one of the best programs from a professional level, the San Antonio Spurs. He was involved there. He was in the trenches there. And all that stuff he took in. And now you can see that he's learned so much over the years, and he's just letting it out now, which is really, really good. And who did he learn under? Coach Mihalik. who had the luxury to work for 3 years, and there's none better. There's none better. And all those resources he has, and it's coming out, and it's really gratifying, for us to see that every day in his own style. It's really unique.
We are going to get to some of those Coach Mihalik stories. But first, we do have a lot of fan questions, and thank you all of you who submitted your questions for tonight's show. One is from Ross from Westbury. It's for you, Tom. And I'm going to combine it with one of mine, which is, how does it feel to be back at Hofstra? He's glad to have you back. And I want to hear some old Hofstra stories. We know about what Speedy did, which we talked a lot about, but a lot of people, maybe not forget, but we talk about Speedy winning that America East title and forget about the repeat America East title the next year, which you were part of the staff for. Sure. So what kind of memories do you have from those years, your first stint here at Hofstra?
Well, thanks for asking the question, Ross. I think you and I had some lunch at Vincent's a couple of weeks back. If it's the same Ross, I'm not sure. I had the spicy fried Diablo sauce. It's fantastic. I hope to go back. When I left Coach Mihalik, I still remember the night he came over to my house with his lovely wife, Mary, my wife, Dina, and myself. We had dinner. And I think he looked at me, and we looked each other in the eye, and he knew that I had to take this opportunity. It was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do, is leave somebody, because this whole coaching profession, the reason you can stay in it for years and years and years is because you really, really enjoy the people that you've been with. I've been an unbelievably fortunate man. I've been at this for a long time, and the only reason I keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back and reinventing myself is because of the people that I've been with, and Coach Mihalik and all the people that I've worked with over the years. And Tom Parrotta was the head coach here when he brought me down. And I remember talking to Tom Parrotta, and they had such success in the America East. It seemed every year it was them in Delaware. They were winning and winning and winning and winning. And Tom Parrotta said, yeah, that America East thing, it's over. We're going to this other conference. I said, what conference? The CAA. And I looked it up real quick, and I'm looking at the teams. I'm like, oh, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. How are we going to be? He's like, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. Well, we weren't okay for the first couple of years. And, we had to get our footing, and we started to get some kids in here, and before you knew it, we were off and running. And the last year was, we won 26 games, and we were, I guess, a game from going to Madison Square Garden for the championship of the NIT. Those are fond memories, and everything in between was, again, what Mike mentioned, all the great people here. All the great people here. That's what made this so special. It was home for us. And that's when people say, hey, welcome home, they actually really mean it, because each and every day that we walk around campus, hey, Coach, it happened today twice. It happened today twice. They said, hey, welcome back. It's really good to have you. And I hope they know and feel that I am really, really happy to be back as well. A lot of fond memories right out there in this arena. We had a lot of success, and we're just ecstatic about building on it, because I do think it can get to higher and higher levels.
Let's go around the horn again. So earlier this week, we saw pictures on the Hofstra Pride social media, the team doing outdoor work with Coach Jim Pendergast, a.k.a. Coach Waits. We see the work that this team is putting in. Give us the inside perspective. What can Hofstra fans expect? What have you seen so far as the character and the makeup of the squad that Coach Speedy and yourselves have put together?
Yeah, so the one word that comes to mind for me so far is we have a hungry bunch. We have a bunch that's really eager to get better. And when I say eager, it's what you talked about. It's with Coach Waits in the weight room. It's them texting us all the time to try and get into the gym to get more workouts in. Player texted me late last night, can I come in and watch film, which like film in the summer on whatever it is, July 19th is rare. But we have a really hungry group, a group that I think has a lot to prove. And I think we have a lot of new pieces. So one of the big words that we've been discussing is chemistry. Yeah. And that's offensively and defensively in terms of building that chemistry. And again, it goes back to where Coach Claxton's personality is really going to have an effect on the team in terms of he doesn't have an ego. So if he doesn't have an ego, that needs to trickle down into this group, because I do really think we have a talented bunch that is hungry. But now the chemistry piece needs to come into play.
Yeah, and just on the other end of it, our guys are eager to knock it out in the classroom as well. Received plenty of text messages at night, just guys submitting their work on time, and to see that's refreshing as well, just so we know it's not all about just basketball. it's also about making sure that we uphold the academic standards of this institution as well.
One of the interesting things for me, we're all brand new, and there's a lot of new faces in that locker room as well, and then you have a new face in the head coach. So everybody at this early time in mid-July, and this is our 4th week of individual or workouts, I'll say, everybody is out there aiming to please. Everybody is trying to, there's a pecking order, and it always shakes itself out. So everyone is kind of moving and trying to figure out where everyone fits. They're trying to figure out what exactly Coach Claxton wants from this group. We are trying to sort that out. I said to a young guy just yesterday, as much as you guys after workouts and practices go down to the locker room and you talk about each other, you talk about the coaches, you talk about what went on, good and bad, we go right up there and we talk about just what went on in practice, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we're just trying to give them answers to the test. And what does that mean? Only 5 guys can play at once. We have a lot of new faces. In this day and age with 1,600 plus transfers that are out there, we've taken advantage of that. So what does that mean? That means we have 5 guys that have a lot of experience. So they're trying to find their way in with a group that has been here. But now there's it's a new regime, and there's a new head coach and a new message and a new way of doing things. So it's exciting each and every day. But I will say, to Mike's word, a very, very hungry group. And they're just trying to figure it out as we are.
We got into Tom's background here at Hofstra before. Mike, I want to touch on your past experience at Hofstra. We're a grad assistant for a couple of seasons. What memories do you have from your time, you said it was now 11, 12 years ago here at Hofstra, being on the staff here?
The first memory that comes to mind is I was really fortunate because I had nothing to do with it. I just kind of stepped in, and I was actually just texting with him before about stopping over for an open gym and going out to grab a bite to eat, but it's Charles Jenkins. Really a special player in the history here at Hofstra University, but also a special person. And I use his name all the time. Someone sent me, when we left here and went up to Fordham 11 years ago, someone sent me when he got drafted his rookie card. And I still have it on my desk, and it's been on my desk for whatever it is the past 12 years since whenever he's been drafted, because his story is such a unique one. And what I mean by that is the reason he became an NBA player is because he outworked everybody. And there's a lot of guys who have the talent to get drafted, but there's not a lot of guys that are willing to make the sacrifices and put in the effort to maximize their talent and meet their talent ceiling. And Charles was one of those guys. And on the back of the card, it has his shooting percentages, his three-point shooting percentages. And I'm going to mess him up right now, but I think his freshman year he was 30%. Sophomore year was 32%. Junior year was 41%, and his senior year was 43%. And he made himself a pro. So you asked me about my memories here. The first thing that comes to mind is the amount of jump shots that I rebounded for Charles in that gym right there. And it really is just a credit to him. It's really a credit to him and all the work he put in. So that would be number one, was Charles. And then again, it goes back to Coach Pecora during my time here was terrific in terms of giving me, to your point, a grad assistant, a ton of responsibility. Charles Jenkins, right? Like you don't get any more responsibility than that in our program. And then the other thing I just really remember it was a lot of early mornings and late nights. You know, TP used the line, you're going to work half days. And it was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And again, we talked about the people here, but Mike Neely, sitting right there, was a manager on that team. And again, you talk about the retainment of Hofstra. Why does it retain good people? It's a really, really good place to work. Mike Neely's been here for 12 or 13 years, and now he's the ticketing and marketing guy. I saw Steve Racefeld today working camp here, who was our other manager when I was here. So again, just a lot of good memories, and I go back to it. The people, just really, really fortunate to be around a lot of good people here. So,
and that
Did you try to sell that Charles Jenkins card, by the way?
He didn't. He never autographed it. He never autographed it.
I don't know. Yeah.
That is a great memory because we have his stats up here.
How did I do?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So 33% his freshman year from three, then 31% sophomore year. So you were close and went up to 41 as a junior and 42 as a senior.
There you go.
So you were,
Chuck, I'm
give
sorry
or take, I mean, half a percentage.
He's definitely buying dinner regardless. He makes way more money than any of us. So.
It's amazing. Hofstra seems to attract those types of players, quite honestly. You know, it's when people get to see the group that's assembled here now, you see that DNA. You really do. And it's just one of those places. Mike and I were talking about this just prior to coming down here. And it's just the place. And it has a mystique about it where you can actually go out there. You can actually go out there and attract a higher level of recruit. Serge and I were talking about this down in Atlanta, way back the last couple of weeks ago. And we're talking about kids that normally we might not be able to be involved with. And we looked at each other, and what did we say?
We got Speedy.
We got Speedy. we got Speedy. And we always say to ourselves, why not?
Right.
Because when Speedy's like, no, I don't know if we can get involved with him, we're like, wait a minute. You were Christ the King. You were all city. You were this. You were that. Where did you go? Came to Hofstra. And he said, I wasn't going anywhere else. It's just that type of place. And he was able to, the message we're giving to recruits is that you can come here and from immediately you can step on the court and develop. And now we do have somebody who we can use that blueprint for. So it's really exciting.
Well, Coach Parrotta, on that point, Kevin mentioned the fact that you came in 2001, won the second of the back-to-back titles. That was the year after Speedy graduated from here. Did you have much of a relationship with Speedy prior to this process? And then another thing he mentioned when we talked to him 2-3 weeks ago, so we mentioned you in particular about the head coaching experience and how important was it to include you in his staff. And he said, it was everything. And during the interview, you told him everything he needed to hear, to bring that kind of veteran leadership to the coaching staff. What can you share about some of that conversation that you had with him in this process? And if you had a prior relationship, how it developed to come to this point?
Well, I was a fan, quite honestly. I was up at Niagara for 6 years. I worked for Jack Armstrong, who was a grad assistant at Fordham when I played way back when. And unfortunately, after 3 years, we were let go, and I came down and I sat across from Jay Wright and Tom Parrotta, and Jay said, come on back home, we'll keep you afloat. Come join our staff. A couple of weeks later, Joe Mahalik gets the job, and he was the assistant at LaSalle, who was in the MAC with Fordham. We lost to him in the championship when he had, so it seemed like 7 NBA players on his LaSalle team. So he was recruiting way back when. Joe wound up keeping me. He wound up keeping me. So when I was back up there, I was just watching the championships, and I was a fan of Speedy. When I got here, he used to come back in the summers. So we used to talk. And I used to ask him all the NBA questions. What does it mean when this happens? Hey, what happened there? What goes on in the locker room? How about the team plane? Can you tell me about how you travel? I was asking him all those types, and I still do. I still ask him those types of things. So there was a relationship there, but I was much older. Now, when I was most recently at Fairfield, I wound up recruiting against him. So we were out there on the recruiting trail, so I'd see him, and I obviously have a huge amount of respect for him. And so we started to forge a little bit of a relationship as assistants back then. But when I came to be, sit across the table from him as the head coach, and me just really hoping that this would work out, that I'd be here at Hofstra. Again, when you're in that seat, there's nothing that you can do to prepare for it, number one. But when you're in it and you're going through it, and then you are able to take a step back, which I've been able to do, it's really, really refreshing for me to be able to be in that seat, learn all the things that you don't even know you're learning at the time, and then you step away from it. I enjoy being able to impart that. So now what's gratifying for me, we got really, really good assistants here, okay? We really do. And they really, really work, as do I. And I just enjoy watching how this whole thing is unfolding. And I really, really like to insert some of the things that I've learned over the years as a head coach, because it's really difficult. It really is. And I think he took solace in that I would be able to maybe, hey, whisper in his ear this, whisper in his ear that, just for things that come up. It's amazing the amount of decisions you have to make as a head coach. And I think that's what he's going through right now, and we haven't even started our first, official practice yet. But there's no more suggestions. He's making hard decisions, probably 25 to 30 a day. And it could range from a lot of different things. So a lot of those things, on the road is a really, really good time when you sit and you're talking, you're watching games and things come up, and it's just things that might pop into my head. I said, hey, give this some thought. I don't want to be overbearing. I don't want to do that. I know my place. Again, it's gratifying to be able to use some of my insight that I've learned, the good and the bad, to be able to say, I could help with this. So I try to take as much off his plate from that perspective as I possibly could. But if you're not open to it, it doesn't work. Right? And he is He is that type of person. He knows who he is, and he just wants to learn. And that's the sign of a really, really sound leader. It really is.
We know about your Hofstra background. We know about Mike's. Serge, you're new here to Hofstra. What kind of connection did you have with Speedy and growing up in Queens, as you mentioned before? You mentioned kind of like a dream to be here at Hofstra. So, how fired up were you to be here and be back home, so close to home, and be on the staff here?
Yeah, Speedy and I met when I was at Adelphi. I had the great fortune of working at Adelphi University years ago, and we just maintained and I cultivated the relationship. That's pretty much it, and stayed in contact with him. And if there was a couple high-level guys on the road, I'll just reach out to him and say, hey man, take a look at this kid. He might be right up your alley, and he always appreciated that. And I never wanted anything from him. I just wanted to just maintain a relationship, and we stayed close and never knew. I had a feeling one day this might happen, but I never banked on it. But we just maintained the relationship and got the phone call, and pretty much all she wrote.
Well, sir, so the thing that I'm interested in, I think a lot of Hofstra fans are going to be very interested in, is during your time as an assistant, you've been very heavy in terms of guard development. Now, when you think about Speedy Claxton and you think about really the last 20 years or so of Hofstra basketball, this program has had a lot of success in terms of developing guards, in terms of some of the star players. What are some of your philosophies when it comes to developing guards? What do you and Speedy talk about in particular when it comes to your guards?
Really, it comes down to just basic fundamentals, passing, shooting, dribbling. Coach Claxton is very big on just the basic fundamentals, and he really wants guys that can shoot the ball. A good base on shooting the ball, and also just making good decisions and having a good feel for the game. That's the one thing that he's always been honed on and preaches every time, having a good feel for the game and keeping it simple. But with him, he always preaches that let these guys play, but if we need to reel them back, that's what we'll do. But he's pretty much lax in terms of letting guys play their games, because that's how he was. He didn't put any excess pressure on himself, and he lets guys play, and that's the luxury of playing for a guy like Speedy Claxton.
I'm glad I'm down with the bigs. There's no pressure on me. These guys are going to have to develop their guards. Every time they say something, they got to realize Speedy's listening.
Well, to the same point, we know Serge working with the guards, Tom with the bigs. Mike, I know you're the defense guy. How do we expect to see this Hofstra team play defensively? How much work is going in still here in the offseason on putting in those fundamentals to make this a good defensive team?
Yeah, so, excuse me, it's a really good question. I think for us, it's time to build the foundation for us defensively, and we are going to be a man-to-man team. So, and to Coach's credit, he's really been preaching a defensive DNA this whole summer. So that's something we spent a lot of time on this summer. It's something I'll say this, the guys have really took to. And they're starting to take pride in the defensive end, and I go back to it, that's just a trickle down from the head coach. You're going to be good at what you emphasize, and right now we've really been emphasizing defense. I'm a big believer that the offense is kind of like the stock market. You're going to have days when it's high, you're going to have days when it's low, and I think defense is kind of like your bonds, where you have to know what your return on investment you're getting every night with your defense, and that's what allows you to win games, even when your offense dips. So you look at like what the Bucks are doing right now in the NBA Finals, and I think that's a really good example. Well, offensively, they've been good some nights, bad some nights, but they're on a 3-game winning streak right now because of their defense. And again, it comes back to, and we've been talking a lot about this summer, a pride. You have to have pride playing that kind of defense. You have to have pride in playing team defense and have an unselfishness to you to play that way. And it's something that their team has really took to so far.
If all three of you can give sort of an insight so far as, we talk about the profile of a coach, right? There are certain coaches that are going to be very intricately involved in every aspect of the team. Then there are going to be coaches that are in terms of the CEO type, right? They like to delegate. They like to sort of get the reporters from 30,000 feet above. What have you seen so far? I mean, again, keep in mind this being early in the process for Speedy Claxton as a head coach. What profile, in your opinions, has he fit so far?
I would say a little bit of a combination of both. I think he knows what he wants as a head coach. He's given us a clear vision in terms of what he wants when it comes to recruiting, what the expectations are going to be on the court as well. We've used the term a lot, compete. we want to have a competitive basketball environment. And I think that's a really healthy basketball environment. When iron sharpens iron, that's a great thing. And I think that's something that he's really preached from day one. But at the same time, he's not a micromanager. Like, he's not, texting you every 2 minutes to find out what's going on with this or what's going on with that. I think it comes down to, and again, we're still developing it with him, but he has shown a good amount of trust to, I've hired you to do this, and we expect you to do this job. And he's really supportive. Like, we get texts from him at night in terms of when you do something he likes, hey, that was great today. And that's good, again, because to Coach Parrotta's point, we're still all learning here.
Yeah.
We're learning the team's learning us. But so I think he's a really good combination of both, where he's presented a clear vision in terms of what he's after, but again, he's not a micromanager.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest positive strengths for Coach Claxton is he's self-aware. He's hired guys like ourselves. We all have experience. We all come from different backgrounds in a sense, and he knows what's around him. And delegating responsibilities to each of us, it's just he has an innate feel for just people. He's very observant, and that's a great quality of a leader. Him being self-aware and hiring guys like us that can rip and run right away.
I can't say anything else but to echo these guys' sentiments. They're both being modest, actually, because, again, Coach Claxton understanding that he wanted to build this thing on defense, that we're always going to have offensive firepower. Mike's point is it doesn't always show up each and every night. He's been able to give Mike the defense and run with it. He does an unbelievable job. The attention to detail in everything that we do, there's a component of defense in all workouts, everything. And now it allows us to go and kind of get in the guys' ears and talk to them about all the different things that can help them along to be a really, really good defensive player, which ultimately will become a really good defensive team. We're not in this to try to be the second or third best defensive team in the league. Our goal is to be the top defensive team in the league. And we haven't talked about offense necessarily as much. Serge, it's really, really good to see when guys have the ability to help guys develop. And that doesn't just mean when they're bouncing a basketball. When you look out there on the floor, you see different pockets of coaches and all sorts of different guys just talking and conversing and asking questions and answering questions. They're asking questions of us, we're asking questions of them. And it all stems from, what is the edict? It comes from Coach Claxton. Again, you have to start and end with leadership. And people go about it in a lot of different ways. I think one of the biggest things that one of his biggest strengths is sitting back. He paid his dues. It's a long time to be an assistant coach, 7 years. There's guys that have done it for 14 years and 21 years and all that kind of stuff. But he was in the trenches and he learned each and everything about a program. And then he looked around and he said, okay, I'm sitting in this chair, and now let me complement what I am with the guys that I'm going to bring in. And to Mike's point, he's let us run with it. And we're all confident in what we can do. We don't have the answers individually, but collectively, I think we're pretty comfortable in trying to help push this thing forward. A lot of times when people say you have experience, I like to think that experience over the years turns into somewhat of an expertise, and I don't mean that in a cocky way. But if you're in this for a long time, it really, really does turn into really, really effective ways in trying to get through to guys. Ultimately, you want these guys to play really, really hard for you and compete. And again, he's given us the freedom. I said this to him a couple of weeks back. I said, thank you for allowing me to be me. Because I can only be what I am. Right. Again, I'm not perfect. I just like to try to get to kids and impact them in the best way I know. And that doesn't mean on the court. It means off the court. It means everything collectively. And I think he allows Coach Serge to be Coach Serge and Mike to be Mike. And somehow, some way, this is all a work in progress, but it works. Just like the guys are trying to figure out the locker room, because there's a lot of new faces, we're trying to figure this out as a new staff. And if we can do it as grown men, we can help these guys do it as young men, quite honestly.
Let's get to more of our fan questions as well. Kirk from New York asks, this roster is unusually deep. How big of a bench do you anticipate on most competitive game nights? This is a team, Tom, you mentioned before all the transfers, it's got some returning players. How have you guys, surveyed, Kirk asking here, the amount of guys that are going to be competing for minutes every night on this team? For any one of you.
Well, it's wouldn't say it's equal opportunity. It's all contingent upon how we play defensively, man. Because the ball may not go in every night, but the couple things you can control is how hard you play and how smart you play, and guys will always be on watch with that. So, if that comes about, guys will play. How hard you play, how smart you play, and just getting guys to play, controlling their emotions. And that's one of the big things that, we try to instill in these young men as well. How hard you play, how smart you play, and then the chips are up.
When you all three of you have mentioned recruiting, right? And obviously the cachet that the name Speedy Claxton carries in these conversations, and all three of you have been very intricately involved throughout the length of your careers in that process. Coach Parrotta, first with you, an angle that Kevin and I were discussing when you were previously at Hofstra was your Lithuanian connections. And you think of some of the names, Arminas or Budis, Žygis Šestokis. I'm trying to think who else was there. Chiesa, Arimas Chiesa, right. You talk to us about some of those connections and what Hofstra fans may expect down the road in terms of some European players that we may see in a Pride uniform.
Well, first of all, Labas Kipsakis. That's my Lithuanian verbiage there. I don't have necessarily a Lithuanian connection. It's just an international thing in general. And it started from me being up in Niagara, quite honestly, for Coach Mihalik. It really was. It's sometimes when, we were up at Niagara, a lot of times people didn't view it necessarily as a garden spot, to be perfectly honest with you. So you had to get creative in your recruiting. So, me being a young guy and would go anywhere and at any time recruiting, I said, we do have to get creative here. So I started to get on planes when everybody was going to the same gyms. I'd get on a plane and go to pretty much all over the world. It just so happened when I got here, I wound up going to Lithuania, and it started with Arimas Chiesa, and then it kind of trickled down from there. So we've had really good success over the years. I've been in a lot of different countries. One of my more interesting stories, when I was here and we had Arimas Chiesa, he was at two gentlemen that I recruited up to Coach Mihalik, Alvin Cruz and Juan Mendez, who were wonderful players up at Niagara. Never got a chance to coach them because I came here. So when I got here, I said, wow, they were at a prep school down in Florida, Melbourne, Florida. So I said, they got this young guy who looked like he might be okay. So I went back to visit him, and all of a sudden he grew, he got big, he fell in love with the weight room, but he happened to be from Siberia. So I walked up the stairs after I got back from the airport from Melbourne, Florida, and I said, Coach Pecora, Arimas' teammate is really, really good now. He's like, really? Do we have a shot? I said, the only shot we have is if I get on a plane and go to Siberia. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I gotta go. My wife was pregnant. I went home, true story, right here in East Meadow, and I said, I know it's Easter. I know we have some problems with the house.
But I got to go to Siberia.
So I got in the car. I went to JFK. I called TP, and I said, T, I'm doing this. He goes, are you sure? I said, yeah, I already got my visa. I flew from JFK to Moscow. I got off the plane. I went from Moscow to Moscow, another airport, because it was so big. And then I went from Moscow straight up to Tomsk, Tomsk, Siberia. And I spent 36 hours there. And the young man wasn't even there. He was still in Florida, and I just went to do a home visit with his mother. Yugevny I hired as my driver and translator, and I spent 36 hours there. I came all the way back. I got there, and the kid called me and said, I just committed to Kansas. And his name was Alexander Sasha Khan, who played some years, I think, with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But that was one of my recruiting stories. So I will go anywhere and everywhere to find a player, and it's just being a little strategic and trying to do things when I was younger, which I'll still do. I think over the years I've managed to find my way to have almost 50 international players. It's just a niche. It's just a niche. But there's players everywhere, and you can see that show in the NBA.
Yeah. Going anywhere, Siberia is certainly up on that list. Another fan question, Andrew from Rockville Center. Can you talk about scheduling locals? He includes Fordham. Mike, of course, your former employer. Can anybody comment on, I know all of you have worked at local schools here in the recent memory, so we talked to Speedy about this a couple of weeks ago as well, about trying to reignite some of these local rivalries. Is that something that you guys as a staff have discussed?
You want to take that one?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me apologize for the coughing fit before. My wife brought tacos for the staff tonight, so I'm blaming it on her. But yeah, so in terms of scheduling, Colin Curtin does our scheduling. He does a tremendous job with it. I'll put it like this. I don't know if it's locals for next year, but we are playing a really, really competitive schedule. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say the names or anything like that. I don't know if anyone gives me a thumbs up or thumbs down. But we are going to play a really competitive schedule next year. So that's something I can promise you. We're going to be tested early and often. And we're going to learn a lot about ourselves. And I used the term before, iron sharpens iron. I'm a big believer in that. I know coaches as well. And I think it'll help us as we move forward into our league schedule.
Well, I want to get into a little bit of some personal questions here. We have about 10, 15 minutes left. Get to know you guys a little bit more besides just the basketball. So, Siddique, this is one of your and I's favorite topics that we talked about, and we spoke about this with Speedy.
Italian restaurants?
Yeah, of course. Speedy and Rick the last time. So we need to go around, and this is a hot debate on Long Island. And Coach Parrotta mentioned Vincent's earlier, so I assume that might be on your list. Give me your top, what do we say, top three
Top
list?
three, yeah.
Top three Italian restaurants
We don't want
on
to
Long
get
Island.
anyone in trouble if you just
Right.
have to name one.
Whoever wants to take that one first.
Top three?
Well, yeah, we don't want to isolate. I mean, there's so many good Italian restaurants. We don't want to have you just pick one.
Well, Mike and I were Fordham. I'm a Fordham grad. We worked there, so Arthur Avenue was right there. So we spent a lot of times at Rigoletto's on Arthur Avenue, which was probably our favorite. Rigoletto's was, and the other one was
Which one we spent?
Michelangelo's. Michelangelo's.
That was your favorite.
That was my favorite. We used to have our official visits there. But I do. I'm partial to Vincent's here. I do love it. When I was here, we used to go there after a lot of the games, and I found my way there a couple of times already since we've been back. So Arthur Avenue, it's hard to beat, to be perfectly honest with you.
Serge?
That's a tough question for me personally. But
Well, you're from the city, so you...
Yeah, but I dabble into Italian restaurants a little bit, but I would say my buddy Carlo Acquista. I've been down there a few times. I used to work with Carlo down at Adelphi University, and he owns a restaurant down off Union Turnpike called Acquista. So, and then
Next to St. John's.
Yeah, right next to St. John's. Then I would probably say Olive Garden. Don't hit me with the mic, please.
Siddique has like a look of fear on his face.
No. I'm actually not as anti-Olive Garden as 90% of Long Island is. It has its place. I'll just leave it at that.
Can I switch seats?
Yeah.
Can I sit?
All right, Mike,
can I
save
switch
us from
seats?
the Olive Garden. Yeah.
So, to Tommy's point, Pasquale Rigoletto's, that's actually where I told my whole family that my wife and I were pregnant. So I got a lot of special memories at Rigoletto's. But on the island, Vincent's Clam Bar, I mean, I know it keeps coming up, but I love Vincent's Clam Bar. My wife and I live in Babylon, New York, so Mulberry Street is terrific. We do go to Mulberry Street a lot out there. We don't go to the Olive Garden, so we don't go to the Olive
No
Garden.
love from anybody.
No, sorry, Serge.
I was kidding.
From anybody so far for Cafe Bacci. That's number one for me.
That's on my top
Yeah.
three. I don't know about you, Kevin,
Yeah.
but
No, number one for me. It's right down the block here.
so
Borelli's, I'm sorry.
Borelli's,
Borelli's too?
Borelli's is another good spot. I do have to give Borelli's.
You can't give a top three with these guys. I'm sorry, you can't give a top three.
So, we talked about, before we went on air, we were talking about the NBA Finals, and obviously tonight, Game 6 in Milwaukee, with Milwaukee up 3-2. One thing that we asked Speedy about, and I don't know, I'm sure by this point he shared plenty of stories with all three of you. We wanted to ask him, when he goes back into his memory files as far as different situations that he can relate to, given a timeout that he, Coach Popovich drew this up, and so that comes from memory. He told us a great story about Pop ripping into him for quote-unquote not being a good teammate on a game where he was brought in. He sulked a little bit to his own admission. but he has a bank of good stories. What has he shared with you so far from his NBA playing days? Any specific players, coaches that he's mentioned? What comes to your mind when he's brought up any of these stories?
I think the biggest, I don't know if it's necessarily a story, Siddique, but one of the things that he's talked about over the years is the difference between the college game and the pro game. Because you're just that. You're a college kid, and then you're a professional, and you are expected to be that. It's still a game at the end of it, you know? But I remember asking him way back when, I said, how come, you know, in college, when you call a timeout, you want the guys to run over to the huddle, and they have to run over or they get ripped. And he said, no, we don't do that in the NBA. we don't do that. In fact, when the rookies get in there, they think that's how they have to prove themselves. And the veterans, he used to say, no, he used to tap the rookies. He said, don't be running back to the huddle. We don't do that here, you know, because they're all about saving themselves and their bodies and things like that. And that stuff interests me. So I'm anxious to see all those different things that you're talking about, Siddique. Him being a pro. It's different, and now he has to change gears a little bit, and he's dealing with 18, 19, 20, 20-year-old kids, quite honestly, and it's different. It's different. You have to coach differently than you did in the NBA than you do in college. So, you know, that's interesting to me.
Well, you know, I don't know if this is a funny Coach Claxton NBA story, but I can tell you the first time how I met Speedy, and it's kind of unique. He came back, he was playing in the NBA at the time. I think he was playing for the Warriors at the time, and he came back to play here when I was working here, and they only had 9 guys for open gym. So I was a grad assistant, and someone was like, hey, you know, we need you to jump out here and play. And somehow I got matched up. Like the players weren't stupid, right? Like I was the one who ended up guarding Speedy. And listen, he just come off a long NBA season and was probably just here to run up and down a little bit and get some shots, but I was guarding Speedy Claxton. This is going back about 13 years ago, and he had the ball above his head, and I poked it away from him. I stole the ball from him, and I went down and laid it up on the other end. So now he gets the ball, it's the next possession, and now, you know, you start to think a little bit of yourself. And I climbed into him again to try and take the ball from him again, and he swung through with his elbow, and he drilled me in my nose so hard I saw stars. And it was his way of saying, like, dude, chill out, all right? Like, I'm just here to get a run in right now. So, but yeah, that was actually the very first time that I met Speedy. So
that's a good one. That is a good one. All right, so I want to bring back the food. Favorite spot to eat on campus? Have you guys had a chance to check out anything here on campus yet?
Well, it's interesting because I can only speak
there seems to be a story here. Because,
you know what it is? Because our wives,
and it has to do with Coach Serge.
I haven't had the pleasure to meet Coach Serge's wife yet, but I do know Mike's wife, Lisa, for a number of years, and he knows my wife, Dina. They pack our lunches Monday through Thursday because they don't want us out going to lunch every day.
Right.
So they pack the lunch Monday to Thursday, and then Friday they give it to us. So we're able to go out and we sample the local places. And
Friday can't come soon enough.
Friday can't come soon enough because we have a sandwich here and there. They make us, and you know, sometimes you get a salad, sometimes I get soup, piece of fruit, and things like that. But Fridays we're able to go out and sample the local cuisine. So, and then we take the staff out and we go out and we kind of get to know each other, right?
Yeah, it's actually funny because, you know, it was like our second or third day here. In the first couple of days, we went out to eat. And my wife was like, all right, you know, here's your lunchbox. so I came back to work the next day, and Tommy looks at me. He's like, where are we going to eat? And I lifted up my gray lunchbox like I was a fourth grader. And Tommy started laughing. He goes, I have the same lunchbox, and I'm packing it tomorrow. So, yeah, so Monday through Thursday, we eat right in the common area. God bless the women's staff. They let us eat out there and hang out. And then we have found, speaking of good Italian places, there's a really good pizza place right down the road, Frantoni's.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to tell you,
It's
it's very surprising. The sweet chili chicken slice is an absolute favorite of our staff. So
And on Fridays, the buffalo calamari pizza.
See, I always miss the memo on Fridays. I've always missed it. No invite here.
He goes out to eat every day, so he doesn't sacrifice through the week.
Well, since he mentioned the Olive Garden, we leave him behind. We get right in the car and drive off.
Serge, Coach Serge, one of the cool things about this kind of a format is that Hofstra fans are watching this, and they're getting to know you. They're getting to know you, and we're talking about some funny questions, but I did want to ask you a fairly serious question, and this is going to give fans a little bit of an insight to a big moment in your life. Just during our light research, we came across a blog post from about 9-10 years ago. You were on a flight, I believe, with an AAU team, and I don't want to sound dramatic here, but you saved a man's life. If you want to tell the fans a little bit more about that story, because I think that's something that was an eye-opener for me, and I think fans are going to appreciate this chapter of your life.
Yeah, long time ago. But I can remember traveling with Sports U, AAU program based out of New Jersey, and we lost. We stunk that weekend. And I was sitting in the nosebleed section in the back of the plane with Beats by Dre in my head, just listening to some angry music. I was a little pissed off in the back. But then as I was sitting in the back, the line to the restroom was piled up, and the line was pretty long. So I just looked, I turned my head, and I just thought nothing of it. But then one of my players tapped me on the shoulder and said something about, I think somebody's in that restroom and they're stuck, or they might be passed out. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah. So, my innate thought was just to help, just to help and to serve. So I went back there, and there was a gentleman stuck in the restroom, and he was passed out. And he was just, guys, how small a restroom is on the airplane. So his body was literally just contorted inside the restroom, and the door would not open. It was stuck because he was jammed in between the doors. So what we did was we just sprung into action, and at that time I was a little thinner. I was able to slide through doors. So, but what I was able to do was just prop the door a little bit, and I was able to squeeze myself in there as another gentleman, one of my players at the time, was able to seam the door, and I was able to go in and kick the door from the inside. But he was unconscious, but I was able to kick the door from the inside and pull his body out, and then from there we let the aide take over and emergency landing. But just to be part of that and to see that man there laying helpless, it was just something I just had to do. Just had to help him, had to serve. It didn't matter whether he came from any denomination, white, black. It was just something that I felt that I need to do because he was a human being.
It's an amazing story. Good stuff. Yeah, it's great stuff. Well, let's close it out here. We were talking a bit before about the NBA Finals tonight. I know you guys are all obviously big basketball fans in general. So are the Bucks going to close it out here in the next couple hours? Are we going to see a Game 7? What's the handicap you guys have on the game tonight?
It's really been good basketball, so hopefully it will go to Game 7. I've come to appreciate how Milwaukee plays. I'm a Giannis fan because I just love that he competes on each and every possession. He's not perfect, but he just goes out there and he seems to really enjoy the basketball game itself. So I'm pulling for them. Don't know if they'll do it tonight, but why not have a Game 7?
It's done tonight. That's it.
All right.
Why? Dare I ask?
Well, I think Milwaukee has found its rhythm. I think the guys are really confident after winning in Phoenix on the road, and it's just Giannis's time.
Yeah, I have to tend to think the Bucks are going to win tonight. I talked about them earlier defensively. I think they've been really good. I think they have a really good coach. I think what Coach Williams has done, by the way, with the Suns is remarkable as well. From where they were, last year to going 8-0 in the bubble, and what they've been able to build off that. I do root for the Suns, though, as well. I'm a big Chris Paul fan. I like Devin Booker a lot, too. So I do think the Bucks are going to win tonight, but to Tommy's point earlier, I'm rooting for a Game 7. I think it's really good basketball.
It's been a great series. Many say that if you change the names, put 2 bigger cities, or put 2 more star-studded teams in there, we might be calling this one of the better finals. And obviously you mentioned Chris Paul and the relationship that Speedy Claxton had with Chris Paul from the beginning of his career. Last one from me, and again, for those who have not yet subscribed to season tickets, 516-HOFTIX. We're going to go around the horn on this one. Look into that camera, speak to the Hofstra fans. Tell them why they should be excited about Speedy Claxton's first season as head coach of the Pride from what you have seen in the development of this team so far.
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying this. I think why everybody should be really excited about the Coach Claxton era is because one of their own has come home. And I think everyone should take a lot of pride in that someone who, to Coach P's point before, turned down other schools to come here to Hofstra and has been extremely loyal to this university. I don't know if there's anybody who I've spoken to who is not rooting wholeheartedly for Coach to have success here. So I think, number one, again, one of their own has come home. I think that's really unique. But the other reason why I think people should be excited is, when we talked about this before, we are going to have a team that competes. We're going to have a team that competes and fights every single night. Now, are we going to be able to control the outcome and guarantee we're going to win every night? No. But what we hope to guarantee people every single night is that we are going to give all-out effort, that we're going to leave everything we have out on the floor. And if we can do that, we can hang our hat at the end of the day and be satisfied with that. And I think that's something that Speedy has been preaching since the time he took over here. And I think that's exciting. I think the other people who were such a fan of Speedy's as a player are going to be a big fan of what we produce as a team, because at the end of the day, the team's going to take the reflection of the head coach. And I think for those who really rooted for him as a player, you're going to see a big trickle down into this team. And I think that word competitiveness by nature is really going to show through.
When recruits ask me what's your style of play, I'll tell them, my head coach's name is Speedy, not Slowy. So we're going to play an exciting brand of basketball. So fans, be ready, be eager, because this is going to be a really fast-paced game, and brace yourself.
Coach Serge, you stole my thunder, because I think that's going to be something to really look forward to, is the style of play. It's going to be open. It's going to be up and down, but never at the expense of playing the right way and playing hard. You know, the bar has been set, and you know what? It's really, really hard to win a basketball game. It's really, really hard to be successful in this business, and that's ultimately what it is, even though we're dealing with college-age kids. In this day and age, it's never before been this much of a business. So wins and losses are important, but we're always going to be who we are. And obviously, the school and the program is going to take on the personality of his head coach. And he is home. He deserves this chance and this opportunity. And we are just fortunate enough to be able to help him push this forward and be as successful as we possibly can here, and to build on the success that's been here. There's a great foundation, and now there's just so many other layers and levels that we can get to. It's a really exciting time, and why miss it? Yeah. Why miss it?
Well, coaches, thanks so much for doing this. It was a great chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're all looking forward to the season getting started. Only a couple months away now, and we know you guys will be grinding in these off-season workouts and getting ready for the Pride fans to have a great product to watch this year. So thanks so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you. Wonderful.
Yeah, Sid, Kevin, thank you guys.
Great time. Thank you.
All right, Hofstra fans, we hope to be back with more of these chats as the season approaches. For the three assistant coaches and Siddique Farooqi, I'm Kevin Dexter. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your evening.